Welcome to the Mary Mac Show, where we will be talking about your feelings, experiences, and pain following the death of a loved one. Hello, everyone. This is Mary Mac of the Mary Mac Show, and we are doing a podcast series called Death by Fentanyl. And I have the extreme privilege of being with Jaime Puerta today. He lost his son, Daniel. Daniel was 16 and a half when he died in April 2020. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And as a result of Daniel's death, he decided to found, yes, he is the president and founder of Victims of Illicit Drugs. It's called
That's correct. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm co-founder.
Oh, okay.
I'm the co-founder of Victims of Illicit Drugs and the president, yes.
My apologies.
Not our problem.
He has done some incredible advocacy work, and I wanted to visit with him so that he can share about Daniel, about his grieving process, and also about all the wonderful work he's doing now with his organization to help stop the flow, not only of the fentanyl itself, but mostly, and what I find the most important also, is the education of parents and children about this and that it's even happening and how effective, unfortunately, these pills have been in killing our children, young adults, and even some adults. This is nothing. This is extremely dangerous. Fentanyl is something that you can take once, either in a pill form or laced in other drugs, and you die. There's no coming back from this. As I usually say when we're talking about this, there is no more experimentation of drugs anymore. There just isn't. The days of experimentation are completely over. If you can take just a few granules, the tiniest of amounts, in a pill or laced in a joint or with cocaine or other drugs, you're dead. There's just no way of coming back. And so, Jaime, I'm so grateful that you're here with me today. And I'd love for you to tell us about Daniel.
Thank you very much, Mary. First and foremost, thank you so much for inviting me to your program. I know it's been a little bit of a challenge for you, but I'm very happy to finally be on your program.
And I'm happy. I'm happy to be patient.
Thank you for being patient with me. It's been a whirlwind and a roller coaster, so it's a little difficult at times. But my name is Jaime Puerta. I'm the co-founder of Void, Victims of Illicit Drugs. But more importantly, I am this young man's father who sits behind me at my desk, whose name is Daniel Joseph Puerta Johnson. My son Daniel passed away at Los Angeles Children's Hospital on April the 6th of 2020. Daniel was I know it sounds kind of silly coming from a parent, but I have to say it. He was a beautiful old soul. And he was the kind of kid who would look at or watch commercials of I forgot what the organization's name is, of the adopting of dogs and cats and things like that. And he would see the terrible state of a dog on television and he would tear up, and he just thought that it was the worst thing that you could do to an animal. He was very sensitive, just like I am, probably more sensitive than me. He had more friends that were girls than boys. They loved him not only because he was so dang handsome, but also because, according to them, he gave the best boyfriend advice in the world. So they would go to him for that.
Interesting.
He was the kind of kid that would take his shirt off his back to help a less fortunate person. and he was a lover, not a fighter. But he was a very complex kid. He was, after he went through puberty, something clicked in his head. He lost all um, interest for school. He just, he used to be a straight A student. He would get A's and B's all the way up to fifth grade, and then sixth grade, when he started going through puberty, something changed in his mind, and he just wasn't interested in school anymore. So he had to go to summer school in sixth grade and in seventh grade, and he had to go to summer school in eighth grade. And it was a very contentious time for us. It was very, very difficult. Um, he in ninth grade, he went to summer school at Canyon Country High School here in Santa Clarita, California. He was a big kid. He was about 5'11", weighed about 210 pounds. And the high school football coach saw him and he said, "You have to play high school football." So he called up Saugus High School, the neighboring school, talked to the coach there, Coach Bourne, I believe his name, and told him about Daniel and invited him to play. And so Daniel went there and he started playing football, and he got interested in school again. He knew that he had to keep his grades up to play on the football team, so he was doing that. They weren't fantastic, but at least they were out of the gutter, and he was doing great. He had a whole set of new friends. He was loved playing football on Friday nights, and he loved me being there cheering him on. And I was probably the loudest voice, stands yelling, and we had a great time. But once that was over, once the football season was over, I noticed even a bigger change. And Daniel started smoking marijuana at first, and then he quickly dwelled into a Xanax problem. So we started going to doctors, trying to figure out what was going on with him. And my son had been diagnosed with severe depression and ADHD. Then we figured that the drugs were a way of self-medicating for him to try to get out of his own head.
Yeah.
There's a lot of depression in my family. So I completely understood that. But there came a point in time that, here in California, I couldn't put him in rehab because he could have checked himself out if he wanted to.
Oh,
So
wow.
exactly. Sometimes here in California, children have more rights than parents do. And I won't go down that road because it'll get me into a political our conversation. I don't want to go down that road with your podcast. It's not worth it. But it was very frustrating, to say the least, of everything that we were going through here. So I was at my last wits, and I didn't know what to do, and decided to send him to Kanab, Utah, to a place called Wingate Wilderness Therapy, where basically they taught the boys self-preservation. Actually, I mean, they took all social media away. There's no TVs. You're walking through Bryce Canyon National Park in Utah, which is absolutely beautiful. And he had to learn how to cook. He had to learn how to start a fire by rubbing the sticks together. He had to become self-sufficient. And according to the psychologists that were with him, they quickly told me that Daniel was a born leader, that he
Wow.
was a jovial kid, and he loved helping others in his group. And basically, after 2 months and a week there, when I picked my son up, I picked up the boy that he had always wanted to be. I think it was night and day. It was just night and day. And I got my kid back, and I was just so, so, so happy to have him back. No
He
drugs anymore.
flourished.
Absolutely flourished. Just absolutely flourished. He had dreams. He had dreams. He He had objectives that he wanted to fulfill. He had fallen back in his high school work practically a year and 3 months. And when he got out of the wilderness therapy, he said that he wanted to catch up, and he sure did. He caught up very quick to his class, and one of his dreams was to be able to graduate on stage with his class, with his friends. That was
Wonderful.
that was what he was working for towards. We pulled him out of the high school that he was attending because he said there were still a lot of drugs on campus and that kids were using drugs in the bathroom. They were vaping. He didn't want to go down that road again. So we pulled him out and we put him in a charter school in which gave him the ability to catch up with his class. But then the pandemic hit. The pandemic hit in Los Angeles County, where I live in Santa Clarita, on March the 15th, more or less. If it's not the specific day, we all locked ourselves in our homes. We had no
Yes,
idea.
that's
We had,
Sunday.
yeah, we had no idea what was going on, and the world stopped. And the world stopped for us. And unfortunately, we feel that that had a huge impact on his psychological well-being, and he wasn't able to hang out with his friends. He wasn't able to be with his girlfriend. He was locked away in his room 6, 7, 8 hours a day, doing schoolwork or playing on with his video games. He got off of track of the medication that he was taking for his depression and his ADHD. He got off track, so he was not getting to sleep until 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning,
Mhm.
not getting up until 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was a psychological hell for my son, unfortunately. And he reached out to somebody on a very popular social media app, which Snapchat. He reached out to a drug dealer. He wanted to. He reached out to buy an oxycodone pill, a 30 milligram oxycodone pill. I know this because of the information I got afterwards, and because I found half the pill on his dresser. But he asked me on March 31st if he could go out and walk our dog Birdie, take her out for a walk, which I found kind of strange because I think, as you well know, Mary, getting teenagers to do things is a Herculean task. But he went out and took Birdie for a walk. He was back 10 minutes later. He was happy. We had dinner together. He was jovial. We were laughing. And he said, "All right, Dad, I'll see you tomorrow morning." I'll see you tomorrow morning. Because he had gotten off track with his medication. I was coming into his room at 8 o'clock in the morning for the past week, week and a half, going into his room at 8 o'clock in the morning, waking him up and making sure that he took his medication because he had gotten so off track. I had to take him to the doctor and everything because it just got that bad. And when I walked into his bedroom on April the 1st, I saw what no parent should ever see. And it was my son was faced up and he had his arms crossed over his chest and his eyes were half open and his lips were blue and his fingernails were blue. And I knew immediately that something horrific had happened to my son. So uh, I called 911 first, and then I called his mother, who lives 5 minutes from our home, because Daniel lived with me, and the paramedics first picked him up, and they took him to the local hospital here, and from there he was taken to Los Angeles Children's Hospital, where later that evening we had a meeting with the doctors, and they basically told us that there was absolutely nothing they could do for our son. He was in a deep coma. The only part of his brain that was actually working was the part that makes us breathe, and even that needed help. And so they said that they would keep him as comfortable as possible, and that when we were ready to make the decision to stop all life-saving or life support, to just let them know that there was no hurry. And to take our time, but more or less, that first night after he told us that, I came home and I told my wife, and my nieces were here. One of my nephews was here, and to accompany us during this very dark time, knowing that I was going to have to say goodbye to my son. And I went into his bedroom and I found half a pill on top of his dresser. I grabbed that pill and I put it in a little Ziploc bag. I made a bunch of photocopies of pictures that we had of Daniel here at our home. And when I returned to the hospital next morning, would put pictures of Daniel all over his hospital room and outside his door. And I took the half the pill and I gave it to his doctor, and they said, Mr. Puerta, even if you give us that pill, there's even if we know what's in that pill, there's nothing that's going to bring your son back. And so what they did is they handed over that pill to Los Angeles County Sheriff's, the Santa Clarita office, to a detective there. And they took that pill and did an analysis of it. Well, I stayed at the hospital with his mom, Denise. And then on April the 5th, she and I had a long conversation during the night. We both came to the conclusion that this was no life for our son. Not only that, but the doctors had told us that his liver started failing, his kidneys had started failing as well, and that that it might be the time for us to have that conversation, which we did on April the 5th. On April the 6th, a team of doctors came in with the nurses at 3:45 in the afternoon, and they disconnected all the life support. Denise, his mom, got into bed with him and was stroking his beautiful hair, and I was holding his hand when he took his last breath at 5:08 that evening of April the 6th. My son passed away, surrounded by the people who most loved him in his life, his mother and his father.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. I had to come home and obviously tell my wife and my sister who was living here and the family. And I think later that evening, I went onto Facebook and I told everybody that my son passed away. Everybody was incredulous. Nobody believed it. I didn't believe it. And it's just any parent who has lost a child knows that it's not normal. It's a shock to the senses. It's a shock to the brain. It's a shock to our bodies. It's nothing that can be explained to somebody who has not suffered the same outcome or situation. No matter what the cause of death of a child may be, it's still the death of a child is a death of a child, and your life is forever changed. And there's a before and then there's an after.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes, it absolutely. Before the person passed and life after the person passed. There's nothing in between.
There's nothing in between.
And the sad part is it's not the natural course of events. Parents are supposed to go before their children.
We are not supposed to bury our children. They are supposed to bury us, which, by the way, because it was COVID-19, I wasn't allowed to have a ceremony. I wasn't allowed to bury my son. I was forced to cremate him.
Oh my goodness.
So actually it worked out better because I have his ashes here at our home. I have in his bedroom, which I turned into a meditation slash TV room slash honor room, where all the pictures of my son are in his room on these very nice bookcases, and his ashes are there as well. I haven't been able to buy an urn yet because I just can't fathom I don't have the courage to opening up that box and seeing my son's ashes. I just, I don't have it in me to do that. I just can't. So
So you just let that be.
yeah, so I just let that go. So for the next 2, 3 months, I was basically in bed. A walking zombie per se.
Yes.
And approximately maybe 2 weeks after my son's death, a detective from the Santa Clarita Los Angeles County Sheriff's Station came to my home. And before he had come, I went online looking for what was the closest pill in resemblance that what my son had taken. And I came to the conclusion that what my son had taken was a blue M30 oxycodone pill. So when the sheriff came to my home and I asked him what killed my son, and he said, "Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Puerta, but your son died due to an overdose." And I go, "An overdose?" And he goes, "Yes, sir, an overdose." And I go, "Well, tell me what pharmaceutical grade pill, when is only half of it is consumed, is strong enough to take the life of a perfectly healthy, physically healthy,
Right.
16 and a half-year-old boy who's 5'11" and weighs, you know, 210 pounds." And he goes, "Oh, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Puerta, but your son didn't consume an oxycodone pill. What he consumed was a pill made of fentanyl." And I go, "Well, then there's a big difference, sir. That's not an overdose, because my son, what he was trying to take, he took half of what he thought was a blue M30 oxycodone pill. And in reality, what it was a fake pill, a counterfeit pill made to look like the pharmaceutical pill,
Right.
made of an binder and fentanyl. And you're telling me that there was enough fentanyl in there to take the life of 4 adults. So it's a very different situation here. And due to the fact that he wasn't trying to take fentanyl, I demand an investigation."
Excellent.
And he goes, "Well, that's what I came here for, man. I looked through his room." So they looked through his room. They didn't find anything. And that was that. And then I went online and when I found out what was fentanyl, I came across article upon article upon article, magazines, newspapers, TV shows, uh, sporadic. It wasn't that. It was more sporadic in 2020 than it is now, because now you see it all over the place. Back in 2020, when Daniel died, you just did not hear about it. You had to actually dig in the newspaper. You had to dig on the internet to find out what was going on. And I found local parents whose children had suffered the same consequences. One of the first persons that I found was Matt Capilotto, who lost his daughter Alexandra. I believe she was uh, either 20 or 22 years old. She was a full ride scholarship at Arizona State University. She was home for vacation in December of 2019. Alexandra suffered from insomnia and had some, I believe there was some psychological type of things that were going on with her, which she also reached out to a drug dealer on Snapchat and bought, I believe it was a Percocet, I think, and what she thought was a Percocet, and it turned out to be fake, and it killed her. So I got first with Matt, and then I found many other parents. And uh, in October of 2020, I had already doing one of the first things that we did as parents is that we started, not me, actually, our children started opening up doors. And I say our children because I'm not talented enough to meet with the people that I've met thus far, per se. I always say that. But our children in heaven, I know it sounds as weird as it is, but they started opening up doors. And one of the first meetings that we had was the Riverside County Sheriff, Sheriff Bianco. And we met also with the County Sheriff for San Bernardino. We met with San Diego County Sheriff. We met
Oh,
with Orange County Sheriff. And we also met with the Los Angeles County Sheriff. And what we did in those meetings was, for law enforcement, when they see these cases, It was very easy for them, to just call them overdoses. And if it's an overdose, then no investigation is done.
Right.
Is the culpability lies in the hands of the person who had taken that drug and died.
Mm-hmm.
But what we
But these weren't overdoses.
correct. But when we showed up and they gave us uh, these meetings, they were nice enough to to give us this meeting. We went in there with 8x10s of our dead children, explained to them who our children were in life, and in some cases there was substance use, and in other cases there was first-time users like Alexander Neville, uh, who's 14 years old, out of Elisa Viejo.
Wow.
Daniel, who had experimented and was self-medicating from time to time with it. Steve Filson's daughter, Jessica Filson, who was 28 or 29 years old, who bought a gram of cocaine and to celebrate her boyfriend's a birthday, and the fact that they had gotten their finances together and had gotten an apartment together, and Jessica had at that time she was 3 years old, Alara, who now lives with Steve and Cherie, the grandparents of Alara. And it touches upon every facet of society that is being decimated by fentanyl. So you have first-time experimental users like Alexander Neville, who's 14 years old, who comes down the stairs on a Sunday night and tells his mom and dad, I smoked weed before and things like that, but I started doing these pills a week ago and I'm afraid they have a hold on me. Can you please get me into a rehab? And then she said, yes, I will. Make long story short, he promised he wasn't going to do anything that night. Unfortunately, she couldn't get him into a rehab that evening. The next morning, when she walked into Alex's room, she found him dead. Jessica Filson, Steve Filson's daughter, and Cherie went to their apartment because she couldn't get a hold of them. They opened up the apartment and found both Jessica and her boyfriend. Both of them were dead. My son Daniel, who was self-medicating due to his emotional state of mind, dead. So, you have first-time users, you have people who are self-medicating, and you have recreational drug users who are dying in record numbers, and everybody's sitting there scratching their head and saying, well, what the hell is going on here? And what's going on is that the drug supply, the illicit drug supply in the United States has now been taken over by illicit fentanyl, disguised in counterfeit pills made to look like pharmaceutical pills. Where cocaine has been tainted with fentanyl without the end user's either knowledge or agreement, right?
Yes, exactly.
And where drug people who are addicted to heroin can no longer find heroin because now fentanyl is much cheaper and it's a much bigger high. And so not only is it decimating people who are addicted to drugs, drug addicts, substance use abusers, however you want to call it, but it's also taking first-time users in their experimental phase. It is taking recreational drug users. And this is why we have the record number of drug deaths in the United States of America. And we're not doing nearly enough to abate these drug deaths in our society. And that's why we felt one of our first meetings, besides the sheriff's meetings, myself and 27 other parents got together with Michael Gray, who is a dear friend of ours who now lives in Florida. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but he had some contacts in the Trump administration and was able to get Jim Carroll, who was the director of the ONDCP, Office of National Drug Control Policy of the United States, the drug czar, under the Trump administration, to go to Columbus, Ohio, at the end of October of 2020. He brought in the Archbishop of Columbus, Ohio. He brought in members of the governor's team, of Governor DeWine from Ohio, and Haida, and to speak with parents. And we were there to try to figure out what we could do to start changing the narrative in the United States as far as the senseless drug deaths. And from that meeting, many different organizations were born. And one of them was the Fentanyl Awareness Coalition, which I was president of for a short while. And I decided to leave that organization and co-found Void, Victims of Illicit Drugs, at that time with Matt Capilotto, Steve Filson, Amy Neville, and myself. And then later on, we brought on Bridget Noring from Minnesota, and Chris Didier from Sacramento, California, Rockland, California, and Perla Mendoza. Matt Capilotto and Perla Mendoza do not belong to our board anymore. So it's just now myself as president, Amy as vice president, Steve as treasurer secretary, and both Bridget and Chris executive board members. And all of us are committed to doing our part to abate the senseless drug deaths in our nation by raising awareness and educating both parents and children of the inherent danger of any kind of drug use. And how we do that is we were lucky enough, honored, quite frankly, with a young filmmaker by the name of Dominic Tierno in 2021, saw Amy's story and read about Alexander Neville's death due to fentanyl poisoning, and asked Amy if she knew 3 other parents that he was interested in doing a documentary on the fentanyl scourge. So myself, Matt, Amy, and Steve, we flew up to Idaho, where Dominic lives. We stayed at an Airbnb in Eagle, Idaho, a beautiful home on a golf course, and they filmed the documentary in 2 days.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, they filmed it, and he filmed it in 2 days in June, or was it May or June of 2021, and it was released in September of 2021. And now that documentary has been seen by millions. I mean, literally millions. Even though the YouTube says about approximately, I don't know what the latest count was. Last time I had seen it was 650,000 individual views, but we use these in high school auditoriums where 3,000, 2,000, 1,500 children are present. So we've presented this in both junior high schools and high schools. It's been shown in Alaska. It's been shown in Colorado, California, most definitely all over the place, because most of us are Californians. School districts in whole, like the William S. Hart School District, the Simi Valley School District, Orange County School District. It's been shown in Texas, New York, New Jersey. Many other organizations have asked our permission if they could use the documentary as well. And the beautiful thing about the documentary is that there are no copyrights to it.
That's great.
They can use the documentary, and they could share it with their friends. They could share it with their families. The school districts are using it as well. Many times school districts call us and ask us that they can have in-person presentations by either myself or Amy or Steve or Bridget or Chris. And we absolutely say yes. If time permitting, we will do that. And we go everywhere, anywhere that we are needed, we go, and we give these presentations. And you'd be surprised at the amount of letters that we get, from people who have watched this. I mean, here's one letter. It says, this is from a student from Golden Valley High School that says, "Dear Jaime, I wanted to say," and by the way, I'm reading this letter to you not as a pat myself in the back type of moment, but it's just to show the kind of impact. Get away from there. Sorry, my dog's got in here. And they're trying to eat my facing fentanyl button. So but this letter right here. So what I was saying, it's not on the basis of ego or anything like that, or patting myself on the back, but I just want to show you, Mary, that a lot of these children have absolutely no idea.
Yes.
That the drugs that are being consumed have been
laced with fentanyl or completely fentanyl.
Correct. So it says, "Dear Jaime, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for being vulnerable to sharing and educating us on this important matter that's occurring around the world that targets our age even more. I admire how you are taking something bad and totally changing the narrative with doing good in the world. And I'm so sure that your son is beyond proud of you and how you are choosing to spread who he was and how he wanted to perhaps impact the world in a positive way. I learned that just a pinch of the drug can kill about 5 adults, which has me flabbergasted on how people are making these chemicals and poisoning. You showed me about being optimistic even in the hardest of times, and I truly admire that. Believe
Aw.
me when I say you opened my eyes more and made me more aware, including other students, but now it's our turn
Yep.
to take control of our decisions with this knowledge that could save us from fatal disasters. I will continue to pass on this information to those who aren't as aware or who didn't get a chance to hear it from you. I wish you nothing but the best, but most importantly, be safe always. Your son is always with you, protecting you and us now that you are fighting for justice and awareness.
Aw.
That's from a high school student. And I have,
Wow.
I mean,
That's amazing. So eloquent too, right? Oh, look at all these.
I got all these letters from kids around the nation who, I'm sorry about the noise.
It's
My
okay.
wife is trying to control my dogs.
What's your
So
dog's name?
um, we actually have 2 puppies now because Birdie died unfortunately due to
Oh,
cancer. That was Daniel's dog last May, in May of
aw.
2022. So we have Pepper and Bruno. This is Pepper,
Hello, Pepper. How are you, darling?
and
Oh, cutie.
Bruno doesn't want to go on the camera. They're like Boston Terriers, and they're running up and down the stairs right now. So I apologize.
It's fine.
But
It's
anyways,
fine.
so we know that when we receive letters like this, that we are actually impacting the least recognized segment of society that is being killed by this scourge, and that is our children between the ages of 11 and 17 years of age. There are a smaller percentage of the total amount of deaths that we've had in this nation. Both, I mean, in 2020 we had 97,000 plus deaths due to drugs in the United States. 75% of those were due to fentanyl poisonings. In 2021, we had 107,611 drug deaths in the United States. 80,214 of those were due to fentanyl and fentanyl related substances. So think about that, 80,214. That's like a 9/11 event every 2.5 to 3 weeks. I mean,
Yep.
so
I was reading on the CDC, and someone said, one of the leaders said, it's like we've had 110,000 deaths just by fentanyl this year, and it's like having a 300-person plane crash every day.
2022 was 109,811, I believe.
Oh,
But
wow.
drug deaths, I don't know what the percentage of those are fentanyl. There was like a 2.5% increase. But they say it's leveled off. But even my own son doesn't show up as a fentanyl casualty.
Really?
My son's death certificate states major organ failure, uh, cardiac arrest, pulmonary arrest, possible drug toxicity. So
Possible. Oh, lovely.
possible drug toxicity. So imagine if that's my son, how many more out there that have not been accounted for? So we know that this problem is much, much worse than people really believe. And one of the reasons why things have only gotten worse is because, again, due to the stigma of addiction and overdose, most parents feel like this can never happen to their family. They feel like there's nobody in their family who's using drugs in a recreational level. They
Right.
have nobody who's addicted to drugs in their family, but they must understand that children are going to be children, period. And there's going to come a point in time where their friends, you know, some of these children are going to succumb to peer pressure.
Yes, exactly. Oh, we're at a party. Just try it. It's just a
We're at a
little
party, just try
something.
this.
It'll
Or
make you feel good.
exactly. Or the kid wants to be a part of the cool clique in school, and to
Yep.
become the cool clique, you got to do drugs. Or they're having stress because of finals, like Zachary Didier, Chris Didier's son. This is a kid who was a perfect A student. He was on the track team. He was in the drama club. He was accepted to 5 different UC, like he was accepted to UCLA, for example.
Wow.
So, um, you know, and he was stressed out because of the tests and the applications for colleges. So he reached out to a drug dealer who delivered the fatal pill to him at the mall in Rockland, California, and it killed him. And there's a kid who had everything to live for, like all of them do. But that's just the thing, is that if the child does not die, because quite frankly, it's not that the cartels are trying to kill our children, and that's what most people don't understand. It's not that they're trying to kill them. What they're trying to do is they're trying to drive the addiction into them. The problem with that is that, whereas before you had people who could live with an active heroin addiction, who would microdose on a daily basis, go to work, be a functioning human being, even though they
Yes.
were at the heroin, microdosing with it, and live with an addiction 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years, no problem.
Same thing with Coke. Same thing with Coke.
Cocaine, but now with fentanyl, they state, and I don't know what the numbers are because I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, I don't have a PhD or a degree in this field, but they say that if you're lucky, you could live with a fentanyl addiction for 2 years. And now I think those numbers have even been cut down even more, due to the fact they're putting xylazine.
Yes. The
Into the
animal tranquilizer.
animal tranquilizer. That's the flesh-eating type of bacteria that, and you'll see pictures of addicts whose limbs have actually been amputated, and their addiction is so strong that they just can't stop. And I understand that now. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, and I've always been the type of person who you could strap yourself up at the bootstraps and just get on with life. I've always been of that mentality that whatever you want to get done, you can accomplish.
Yes.
And I always looked at drug addiction as something of choice. That if a drug addict really wanted to stop, they could stop. I was at I was invited to a Project Opioid Summit. It's an organization out of Florida, and they had these speakers there. And one of those doctors, there was a doctor who gave a presentation. It was Dr. DeHilme out of San Diego, who's a pain management doctor, but his practice now is medically assisted treatment. And he was giving us a PowerPoint presentation in which on one of the slides, he was showing us the brain of a person who was completely normal, to the brain of a person who was addicted to drugs, to the brain of a person who had been off of drugs for a year. And it was an eye-opening experience and education for me, because that completely changed my whole way of thinking of it. And it's not that addicts are addicts because they want to. Addicts are addicts because they have to. In other words, they have to consume their drugs. Their brains are rewired to a way that they have to use the drugs. Otherwise, they'll lose their minds. They can just absolutely go crazy, which is why medically assisted treatment is so important. And this doctor, in his practice in San Diego, actually gives a long-lasting buprenorphine injection under the stomach, or under the epidermis and the skin, in other words, where it releases the medication. Hold on 1 minute. I need to stop these dogs. I'm going to mute myself really quick. Okay, my wife has finally got them in the room. So when I talked to him, I asked him, he goes, "Are you serious?" He goes, "Look, even if they went cold turkey, going through cold turkey could actually kill some of these people." They need help. And the only way they can get that help is through medically assisted treatment that's treating them with long lasting 30-day buprenorphine injections with Suboxone, with the Suboxone type of medicine. And that is the only thing that is helping them stay clean. A rehab does not work. Going cold turkey for 30 days for many people doesn't work. You have to have that medically assisted treatment. Abstinence, I would love for people to be abstinent. That's another way of doing it, obviously. But, we have a problem here. And again, they're trying to drive the addiction into them. So if your child does not die, I can guarantee you that they're going to want to do it again until it takes their lives. And it's just the cost of business for these people. They don't,
Yeah.
Sinaloa cartels and the new generation cartel, they don't care about the lives of the children who are dying. They just don't care. To them, it's a business model that's working. It's a business model that's made them billions of dollars, and they're not going to stop. It's going to continue. And we, in our society in the United States, I think that we are the country that is the most medicated society on the face of the earth.
Oh, I completely agree with that, whether it's prescription or not.
Whether it's prescription or not, you turn on daytime TV and all you see is, if it's not something for rheumatoid arthritis, if it's not something for erectile dysfunction, if it's not something for diabetes, if it's not something for cancer, if it's not one thing, it's another. So we have normalized to a certain extent in our culture the taking of prescribed or not prescribed, or prescribed medication or illicit drugs. We've normalized it we've actually legalized cannabis in the state of California, and there are other states who have followed suit that have only created more problems, where I don't think the tax dollars are really worth it for for the state governments, because it's just creating a whole host of problems. But we've normalized pill taking to a sense that these kids think that it's normal, and it's very unfortunate that is that, because that's another reason why so many children are dying. They just don't know. They
No,
just don't know.
they don't. And they've seen their parents popping pills too. They might have seen, there was an injury and they needed to take a, very high dose of some kind of painkiller. And that's the way it goes. That's how we deal with things.
There are people in our country that live with chronic pain, and I understand, because we've been attacked. You're talking about fentanyl, but I'm not talking about medically prescribed fentanyl here. I'm talking about illicit fentanyl that is made south of the border and that's now made in the United States. You can go on to Amazon and buy the pill press. You can buy the dyes. I mean,
Oh
you can
my
buy
gosh. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, there was another organization who was writing letters to Amazon who was trying to stop them from doing that. I think one of the reasons why they continued selling it was saying they were telling them, or one of the excuses was that their customers like to press their own vitamins. I have never ever anybody
I've never heard of that.
I've never heard of anybody pressing who would go through the trouble of pressing their own vitamins. I don't know. So I don't know, but it's a very complex problem, and I feel that we're not going to arrest our way out of this. We need to let the DEA, Homeland Security, CIA, FBI go after the major players. And as parents, we need to continue what we're doing, and that is raising awareness and educating the masses, and educating kids and parents alike, especially parents, and letting them know that you don't necessarily have to have a recreational drug user in your family or somebody who's addicted to drugs for this to take your child like it took mine. Had my son decided to self-medicate back in 2008, for example, if he was the same age at the time, he would be alive today. But he's not. He's dead, like so many others have. So
Thank you, Jaime. Thank
you're
you for
very
giving
welcome. I
us
mean,
such
this
an
has gotten
amazing.
this has gotten to such epic proportions that you can stand in the middle of the street of anywhere in the United States unless you're in a cornfield in Iowa, you can stand in the middle of the street of suburbia, throw a rock in any direction, and you will actually hit somebody who's either been directly or indirectly affected or has known of somebody who has passed away due to fentanyl. And it's still happening. So that's how bad the problem is right now.
Wow. I am grateful that you're standing in the gap.
This is my therapy. This is if I'm not doing anything, that's when I become the most depressed. You know,
Totally agree. I can attest to that. It's what makes you keep going is to do good and to educate. It's awareness, it's education, it's the sense of knowing that all our work is for the greater good. All our work is to make sure that there's a lot less children who will ever be introduced to this.
exactly. I mean, reading that letter alone, it gets me emotional because I know that we are all making a difference in this fight. And, you know, and we've made great strides. We are a nationally recognized foundation. We have given presentations not only, and I can say it now, but there was a big operation for Homeland Security investigators called Operation Lotus. We gave a presentation to them before Operation Lotus was launched. We are very proud of that. We have given presentations along with the DEA, who call on us all the time to help them give our presentations. Here in California, for example, we have partnered with the Los Angeles Police Department, going to the most underdeveloped neighborhoods in Los Angeles County, where there's a huge Mexican mafia presence, and you know, poverty is pretty bad, and we go in there and give presentations. You know, school districts have called upon us all across this nation to give our presentations, and we do so. We're very lucky that, you know, before we're basically self-funded. I spent a hell of a lot of my own money in 2021 and part of 2022. But now we get private donations that have helped us, you know, pay for our plane tickets, and you know, we don't pay ourselves salaries. We're not like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we take care of our out of pocket expenses to go out and do these presentations. I'm very privileged. Well, I'm not privileged. I would say I worked my butt off to get my company to where it's at, where I don't have to be present as much. It almost runs itself. But I could only do that because of my beautiful wife Claudia, who helps me. She's the backbone. She, in fact, if it weren't for her, I don't know I would have made it. I mean, she has been my rock. She has been my angel. She has been my saving grace, along with my faith in God. So, but
I'm very glad you mentioned her.
oh, I love her. And anybody who meets her, the first thing to say is, "How in the hell did you land that? How did you pull that one up?" And I still don't know how I did it. I was very lucky. I think God knew that what was going to happen, though, and He needed to put
Yeah.
a beautiful. She's not only beautiful on the outside; she's just a stunner. But what makes her even more beautiful is her heart,
Yes, and her
her
soul.
spirit, and her
Yep.
soul. That literally have kept me on this earth, because, you know, I mean, when my son went, I wanted to go too. I didn't know how I was going to be able, because I had, you know, I was a single father, you know, even though he had his mom and everything, but he lived with me, and of course he lived with her as well, and she's decimated too, and she's going through her own living hell as well. Luckily, we are very good friends, and my immediate family now consists of my wife, uh, my sister Sandra, and Denise, his biological mom. That's basically it, and all my family in Colombia, South America. But, you know, it's been really, really hard. But, you know, again, the advocacy has been my personal therapy. Um, and I also go to a men's group online other bereaved fathers who have lost their children either due to them being murdered or suicide or car accidents, motorcycle accidents, freak accidents, all, they're all
Sudden death.
sudden death. And even most of them are sudden death. There are some whose children went through periods of cancer and didn't survive, but we all have one thing in common, and that's that we all lost a child, and there's an unspoken bond there, or an unseen bond that brings parents who have lost their children. There's a bond with that parent that is inexplicable. It's
Very
something that
true.
cannot be explained. But being with a group of men who have also suffered the same fate, because men grieve differently than women.
Oh, yes, do they? And it's not easy to find a group like that. So I'm so glad that you did.
Yeah, I'm very blessed. That's another thing that Daniel brought me to. I mean, I found them by accident. So yeah, but it helps. When I'm not doing anything, like these summer months, we're very quiet, but we're trying to gear up for the school season. We have lots of schools already talking to us. We're talking to Texas. We're talking to uh, uh, there's many different school districts that I don't want to jinx it, but we are gearing up to doing more wonderful things. And we're doing what we can. We're doing what we can.
Outstanding. Outstanding. I'm so grateful for you. I'm grateful for all the people who are behind you and work with you on, your organization. I'll put all the links in the show notes, and you'll have to give me the link to the documentary as well. I definitely want to put that there.
It's on the very first page of our website. It's
Okay,
if you go to
great.
stop.
I'll grab that. I
Yep,
want people to know about that.
it's in
It would,
Spanish as well.
oh, phenomenal. Okay, great.
So
I'll put both in.
yeah, I've been very, very, very active this past year and a half in the Hispanic community. And I first have to thank Dr. Beatriz Villarreal from San Diego, who is the president and founder of the Mano a Mano Foundation. And I also have to thank Ms. Zuli Roman, who is the president and CEO of Expediente Rojo, who does a lot of work with the Los Angeles Police Department. They have opened the doors to their followers, and we have just done amazing things in the Hispanic community, especially, the Hispanic community. We don't like to talk about spousal abuse. We don't like to talk about drug addiction. We don't like to talk about alcoholism. We don't like to talk about, these are all things that are swept under the rug in our
Culture.
community, in our culture. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Even my own father has a difficult time speaking to me, or my own family in Colombia has a difficult time speaking to me of their cousin and everything like that. They've come around quite a lot because of all the education that I've done and everything like that. But it's very, it's like most. It's like, okay, if somebody dies due to drugs, and go, oh, well, that person must have been a drug addict, or that person,
Exactly. Or they blame the victim.
yeah, or blame the victim. But
Same thing
again,
with murder, right?
yeah,
Blame the victim.
blame the victim. But exactly, it's like people don't understand is that first and foremost, again, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face, this is affecting every corner of our society. It does not discriminate against race. It doesn't discriminate against culture. It doesn't discriminate your religion. It doesn't discriminate skin color. It doesn't discriminate economic where you are on the ladder in the economic
Yeah.
ladder. It's taking everybody. So people need to understand that. They need to learn that. I would tell your audience, Mary, to, if they can, go to stopthevoid.org. When they have a chance, watch the documentary called Dead on Arrival. Watch it with your teens and share it with as many people as possible that you can. And we would be there. Like I said before, there are no copyrights to it. If a parent wants to use it who has lost their child and wants to use the documentary, please do so. Just don't watermark it with your own foundation, making it look like you produced it, and we'll be fine with it. Everything else goes.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Jaime. I'm so grateful for all your wisdom that you've shared today. And my sorrow goes out to you for Daniel's death.
Thank
And
you.
and yet look at what has come of it, unfortunately.
Well,
Something good has come out of all this pain.
well, only good can come from this because I mean, what else can happen to a person who's lost a child? You
Not
know,
much.
there's nothing worse than losing a child. Nothing. There's absolutely nothing worse than losing a child. So um, it's only been strength, not my own strength. Even being a Marine Corps veteran, I still break down. I still cry 2 or 3 times a week, if not more. I still miss my son. Um, I miss him horribly. Um, I miss him so much that I actually feel physical pain.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a physical pain. But I know that he and all the other children who have succumbed to this poison are the ones who are propping us up and helping us put one foot in front of the other in trying to get this work done. And luckily we have, because now look at the difference between fentanyl awareness, what it is today, to what it was back in 2020. There's not a
Big difference.
not a day that goes by, that somebody is not talking about fentanyl either in Congress or in the Senate or in your local communities. I mean, I think we are the very first organization in the nation that's actually partnered with a county to come up with a fentanyl initiative awareness campaign. The San Bernardino County partnered with Void, Victims of Illicit Drugs, to come up with a massive fentanyl initiative where they have these PSAs on TikTok, on Meta, on Snapchat, I believe, which I don't know, not Snapchat, because we didn't want them to do it there. But they have it inside the theaters before the movie starts. We have 15 billboards, fentanyl awareness around all San Bernardino County. The tagline is fentanyl doesn't care, but we do.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Fentanyl doesn't care that you're going to school, but we do. Fentanyl doesn't care that you're a single parent, but we do. Fentanyl doesn't care, that uh, you're a football star, but we do. Fentanyl does, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, that's really great.
yeah, so if you go to San Bernardino County's Department of Behavioral Health and look at the fentanyl initiative, you'll see our logo on there with them. We're doing PSAs, we're doing podcasts as well. Um, well, we have the billboards, we have the short PSAs in the movie theaters, and we have
That's
other things.
very ingenious. I think that's excellent.
Yeah, it
If
is.
so many of the young people go.
Yes, and so we're trying to replicate that in other counties that'll listen to us. We're in conversations with other counties. We'll see how far we got, but at least we were able to get one county, a government entity, to partner with a foundation made up of bereaved parents, partner together, come together with ideas of what we could do for the whole community, all in the name of saving lives and making sure that San Bernardino County's residents understand the inherent danger of any kind of drug use whatsoever.
Yes.
And
And that's what it is now. It's any kind of drug.
exactly. So we're going to also start with in school presentations. Um, we have there's a lot of things that I'd rather not say right now, but there are
That's fine.
so many initiatives happening right now that we're just, I feel like, for and we still have our full-time jobs, by the way. I mean,
I know. I
if I could find a way of being able, if I could find like a huge type of donation where I could take a sabbatical away from my personal business, I would dedicate myself 120%, 24 hours a day to to our cause. But still have to put food on the table. I still have a mortgage that I need to pay. So I can't dedicate myself full time to it. I wish I could. That would be my dream. But all I can do and all we can do and all the other parents can do is just keep trying and keep doing what we're doing. We're very, very proud of the fact that we San Bernardino County partnered with us. That's what's been one of our greatest achievements so far. And we have lots more achievements many more objectives that we need to hit. But we're very happy where we're at today. But at the same time, we're not happy with the numbers, which means that still a lot more needs to be done.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Thank you, Jaime.
Thank you, Mary.
It's phenomenal, everything that you've accomplished in such a short period of time.
It's really been a lot. I mean, again, all ego aside, we have accomplished so much in the education, awareness, and prevention side that we are truly proud of what we've done. But at the same time, when we see those numbers come out from the CDC, it's like a gut punch and saying, where are we failing? Where are we failing?
But we can't look at it that way. We have to keep thinking about all that we have accomplished and will continue to accomplish. Because if we keep looking at the numbers and we see how they're going up instead of down, it is. Like you said, it's a gut punch. You feel like, what exactly am I doing this for? But
oh no, but that's not going to stop me.
Exactly.
That's
because
not stopping me. That's
even though those things go through our mind, it goes away pretty quick because we do realize how much we have accomplished.
Exactly.
So
very true, Mary.
Thank you again, Jaime.
You're
I
welcome.
hope one day I get to meet you in person.
Are you in New York?
I'm in Florida.
You're in Florida. Okay. Yeah. This year, maybe next year. There's our documentary is we're in conversation right now with Dade Miami School District.
Oh, good.
So there's some good things happening there as well with another group called Fentanyl Fathers, which is it's the very first foundation. You should
I'll reach out to them.
You reach out to Gregory Swan. Yeah.
Okay.
They're called Fentanyl Fathers, and there's like 5 or 6 fathers from around the country who've gotten together because I don't know why, but there's more women in advocacy than men. There's not that many men in this space. Yes. And so we're like the outlier. But this group, I became I not only serve on their board, but I also serve on the Alliance to Counter Crime Online as an advisory board member. Also with To End the Stigma out of Fairfax, Virginia, with Jill Chikowitz, a wonderful woman. I love her. She's doing wonderful work in Virginia as well. So I'm on there more as an advisor and trying to give them ideas of what they can do. So they'll come to me and, Jaime, what do you think about this? Or Jaime, what do you think about that?
How nice.
I'll help out wherever I can. Yeah, exactly. And our big fight as well is against social media apps like Snapchat. We're at war with them. One of the things that we were able to achieve was, I don't know if you ever heard of CADCA. CADCA is a very large organization made up of, they're the ones who certify the drug coalitions across the nation, and they were going to bestow the Humanitarian of the Year award onto Snapchat until Amy Neville and Sam Chapman and myself and many other parents got involved in with a petition from change.org. And Sam and Amy and Mark Berkman, who is the CEO of the Partnership for Safe Internet or something like that, or social media. They were all able to talk to the CEO of CADCA, who's a General Barry Price, and they've actually rescinded their award.
Very good.
And taken them off as their staunch supporters. So Snapchat is trying to buy their way into these organizations, and they don't know that they have to contend with bereaved parents that sees through their smoke. Snapchat and all of their supporters, I have absolutely no respect for them. So
yep, it's horrible.
There's BBC just came out with the news report out of England, and this reporter opened up her own profile on Snapchat, and she goes through the step by step of how she got sucked into, not sucked in, but through her investigation, that drug dealers are showing their wares, they're showing her their drugs that they're selling, everything. And Snapchat keeps saying the same thing, that we don't allow drug dealing on our app, and that we're doing everything possible to not allow drug dealers on here, and at the same time trying to coerce like organizations like Katka and others, like they're the best social media company out there, when they're not doing anything, quite frankly. I mean, they're not doing anything.
I'd like to see her expose, because that would really open a lot of people's minds too.
I put it on my, if you look on my personal Facebook page, I don't know if you ever seen it, Mary.
No, not yet.
I'll send you, it's Jaime Ignacio Puerta. I know I will send you my link.
Okay.
Facebook, and because I put everything there, and I also tag Void, so it goes there. So victims of illicit drugs, you'll see the news article there from the BBC on her investigation on what she found against Snapchat, and you'll see everything. You'll see how Katka rescinded Snapchat's Humanitarian of the Year award.
It's so interesting to me that, like, they would even consider something like that without even really doing an investigation on what do they do,
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, but they, we were very fortunate that General Price is a very intelligent, smart man who had the wherewithal to listen to these parents of why they should not be awarded with this award. And he listened. He took some days to think about it, and he came back. He says, "You guys are absolutely right. We're going to rescind the award, but don't say anything until this date." And then just this past Monday was the first time that we were able to talk about it. So,
wow.
yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you again for everything. I look forward at some point to meeting you, and I bless you so much for everything you've done for others.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you for your invitation. Sorry, I wasn't playing hard to get. It's just that I was very busy. So, but I appreciate you. I appreciate everything that you're doing. I know that you're reaching thousands with your podcast, if not more, hundreds of thousands. And this is all in an effort together to abate these drug deaths and really educate your public, your audience, and hopefully they will listen to this podcast with great intent and understand what's happening. And hopefully, if you ever need me in the future, I'd be more than to help you out. And I'll send you the information for the Fentanyl Fathers. You want to talk to them, and yeah, and anything I can do to help. And also to end the stigma, you would definitely want to interview Jill as well.
Now I'd like Jaime to tell us about this Prevention Day. It's the August 21st, National Fentanyl Prevention and Awareness Day. And he's very excited about it because he's going to present. And I didn't want to finish up the podcast without us talking about this.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to just yeah, it's a lot of things going on at the same time. My dear friend Andrea Thomas from Voices for Awareness out of Grand Junction, Colorado, came to me last year, approximately in February of last year, and said that she wanted to do a National Fentanyl Prevention Awareness Day, and we were off and running with boots. And what happens is that many coalitions or many nonprofits made up of bereaved parents from around the country on August the 21st will have their own events, whether it's going to the Capitol and speaking to the senator or their legislators, whether it's a 5K run, whether it's going to the local park and handing out naloxone, whether it's a car race. We have actually a drift car that's going to be racing with the Facing Fentanyl logo all over it. Whether it's giving presentations, for example, myself and Void, victims of illicit drugs, are going to New York to meet with the mayor, Eric Adams, and the police there, and they're also will be presenting to Homeland Security investigators up in New York as well. So many different activities are coming around. Not only has it been backed by the DEA, but Homeland Security is also going to back that day. The CDC has also backed that day, recognized that day as the National Fentanyl Prevention Awareness Day, as well as many states and many state legislatures and many cities. For example, last year there were many cities in California and that I know of, and this year the city of Santa Clarita, where I live, is also proclaiming it as August 21st as the National Fentanyl Prevention and Awareness Day. If people want to find out more about it and you want to become involved, please go to facingfentanylnow.org, facingfentanylnow.org. It's a wonderful website. It's full of PSAs, videos. It has a memorial wall, which is a little sad, but it shows all of the people who have died due to fentanyl poisoning or addiction in the states across the United States. It has a memorial wall. It has a supporter tab if you want to become a supporter, or your organization also wants to become a supporter of August the 21st. You can become a supporter. It doesn't cost any money. It's absolutely free. And help us spread the day. So it's a day where many hundreds of organizations from across the United States get together, do their own awareness initiative for that day. Again, whether it's a 5K run, a motorcycle poker run, presentations, whatever the case may be. And it's all in because we just want to spread awareness. We want to bring awareness to our communities. We want to educate the public, and that's it. So please go to facingfentanylnow.org, and you'll also need to, Mary, I need to put you in contact with Andrea Thomas so you can interview her as well.
Sounds great. Thank you very much. And we'll see you again on the next episode. We're grateful for Jaime being here today. And please remember to subscribe, like, comment. Let us know if this has affected you. And we appreciate you. Bye now.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, wonderful evening. Bye-bye.